Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about episode 3 of Loki, which just came out. It's actually the shortest episode so far, so I'm recording this a little bit earlier than I otherwise would have. But I am going to be continuing, of course, my 3 a.m. spoiler reviews for Loki, recap and reviews. And I will say once again that I am no expert in the Marvel Comics, so I will be talking about some stuff that I have read about the Marvel Comics in this episode that pertain to certain spoilers within this episode. So if I get things wrong, please do me the favor and correct me in the comments down below. I love learning about these things, and I love talking about these things with you guys because I love nerding out about the MCU shows. Although I'm not a huge comics person, I do love these things, so help me get into all these things as well, and I'd love to hear all your thoughts on this episode along with everything else that I talked about today. So like I said, this is a spoiler video, so let's just get right into the recap and review of this entire episode. And we left off last episode with Loki following off this lady version of himself through the Tempad portals, these time gates, and he runs through there. Owen Wilson is left behind, and they go to the TVA. And so we do get a little more motivation from this character, who we do find out is Sylvie from the comics, who is more so Enchantress than she is Lady Loki. So we do get confirmation of that, which was heavily rumored over the past week and talked about by a bunch of people. And so we do get some motivation behind Sylvie, and she wants to go to the TVA. She wants to find this elevator thing. She wants to get to the timekeepers, and I don't essentially know exactly what she was going to do if she got to that point, because of course we have Tom Hiddleston as Loki being as charming as ever, fighting his way and talking his way into getting her into a terrible situation as Loki generally gets himself in every single time he really does anything. And this was a very entertaining episode because this is very much heavily Loki and Sylvie, just relationship wise, them getting to know each other, them getting to know or getting to trust each other in ways. And I still don't think they fully trust one another, but they made a lot of progress in this episode. So Loki stops her, they go through another one of those time gates with the Tempads, and they get dropped into this area. Loki grabs that Tempad, and they end up in this place called Lamentis 1. And Sylvie quickly tells us that Lamentis 1 is one of the worst apocalypses that they could have possibly gone to, because there is absolutely no chance that anybody, literally anybody, not even them, could get off this planet without the use of the Tempad, which its battery charge is out, unfortunately, so they have no choice but to try to get off the planet themselves. And so this episode quickly turned into Greenland, which I am actually watching Greenland right now. I'm about like an hour and 15 minutes into the movie, and I'm really enjoying that. And this episode was very reminiscent of that. But I do want to talk about the technical aspects of this episode, because they have to be using the volume, which is where they shoot all the Mandalorian episodes in this episode, right? They have to be using the volume for this show because it looks phenomenal. I took so many screenshots of all these gorgeous visuals throughout this entire episode that I'll lump in here, because the whole aesthetic of this episode reminded me very much of Thor Ragnarok, with, you know, the type of architecture and the type of, you know, things that were in this place, and the little mining thing that they go in, the mining shack that they hide into, was very reminiscent of the thing that the Grandmaster hides into in the after credit scene of Thor Ragnarok. And all these little different things, it's architecture of all these, like the city and the arc, all of that reminded me very much of the Jack Kirby inspired, I believe Jack Kirby inspired Thor Ragnarok design of the entire episode on this planet. So it was very, very gorgeous. And I keep on forgetting to mention the music in these episodes from my previous recap and reviews. The music in the show is phenomenal. Natalie Holt is the composer of this show, and she does a phenomenal job with everything. I really hope that she gets so much more work after this, because her music in this is just absolutely, it fits the tone of the show so perfectly. And just the entire tone of it really is that snarky type of style that Loki has always had, that, you know, charm that he's always had, that comedy that he's always had, and she really does capture that tone within the entire episode. But just the tone of the show I love so much, because you get so much of the Tom Hiddleston and this new Loki, the Sylvie character, bouncing back and forth with their banter, which is so entertaining. And like I said, you get to know their relationship in this episode, and them, you know, reminiscing on their different pasts and reminiscing about their mothers, and Loki talking more about his mom and how she was the one who taught him the magic that he knows, and all these different things. I can see the sadness and the I guess the good memories that he has with his mom, because he really truly did love her over anybody else in the world besides maybe himself. And you get to hear Sylvie talk about how she didn't know her mom, and she had to kind of teach herself magic on her own. So she's really one of those, you know, type of people that builds themselves up, that really could only trust themselves because that's all they ever really had in their life. And so these differences in their past, although they have very similar upbringings in some ways, they are really similar in some ways, but also extremely different, and that makes them such a great pair. And I feel like the show is kind of trying to make a romance between the two, which, I mean, Loki is a narcissistic character, and, a narcissist would tend to love themselves, so maybe, is that weird? Is that weird to love or to have a relationship with a version of yourself from a different timeline? I don't know if that's weird. But also, speaking on love, I have some quotes here, but I do want to talk about, it is Pride Month, and of course, now Loki is bisexual in the MCU, which is awesome. I love the fact that they kind of plopped that into the episode and just kind of ran with it, so that was a very nice touch for them to add. But I love their conversation of how love is hate, or love is mischief, or love is, I don't know, I might have to just take a couple more drinks to actually talk about that. I love those little moments, and when Loki does drink and he's all drunk and singing, Asgardian folk songs to, I guess, kind of woo her in some ways. He's, just having the time of his life because he did break the tempad, and so he really has nothing to lose. He's on this planet that's going to explode, and they have essentially no hope, and he's just trying to get to know her before, I guess, he dies. I don't really know Loki's motivation, because he doesn't come up with a plan to try to hijack the Ark until later on in the episode, because apparently he knew the entire time that the tempad was broken, so he's just kind of letting loose. But there is a hilarious quote where Loki compares love to a dagger, and this is the quotes. A weapon to be wielded far away or up close. You can see yourself in it. It's beautiful until it makes you bleed, but ultimately, when you reach out to it, it isn't real. To which Sylvie makes fun of him and just say that love is an imaginary dagger, which I wouldn't disagree with. And when it comes to Sylvie, trying to figure out who she is, essentially, in the comics, Sylvie Lushton is, essentially, she was a normal person, and then she was given the powers by Loki, or maybe she was created from scratch by Loki because he wanted somebody to feel similar to him, to be able to relate to somebody, to, think that they're an Asgardian exactly like he was. I think I'm getting that right, but Sylvie does have a history with Wiccan in the comics and all these different things in the Young Avengers, so it makes sense that they're introducing this character. I don't think she will be in the Young Avengers. I know they have Wiccan and Speed and all these different characters that they're going to have. Ant-Man's daughter, of course you have Kate Bishop in Hawkeye, all these different things that they're setting up for Young Avengers. I'm not sure if she's actually going to be a part of it, because she does seem quite older than the Young Avengers type of moniker that she would technically have, but it's interesting to see where they go with the actual comic connections with this character. And I don't know if Loki did create her, because I think that's an interesting thing to think about, and maybe that this variant of Loki, kind of like Tenet, soon in his future went to her past to recruit her or to create her or to do some sort of thing. So maybe that is still the case. Maybe a different Loki created her, or maybe she just is a variant of Loki that lived her life and that, did all those things that she talked about in this episode and wasn't created by Loki at all, and is just taking the name of Sylvie and taking the moniker of Enchantress for the sake of this show. So Marvel does like changing things and picking and choosing what they take from the comics, and that will definitely be something that I am into, but it is interesting to think of whether or not she was actually created by Loki like she was in the comics. But again, that relationship that they formed in this episode was really, really fun. We don't really get too many motivations behind Sylvie and behind Loki. This episode really was about their relationship and them getting to know each other, them trying to, get off this planet. And this episode does end in quite the cliffhanger, because it ends in a oneer, which it is a fake oneer, but still it's a oneer nonetheless. Very technically impressive. And the action, the hand-to-hand combat in this episode in particular was much better than some of the other hand-to-hand combats at the beginning of last episode, and especially in the first episode. I thought they were kind of a little meh in the first two episodes, and I didn't really mention them in my videos, but this episode, they absolutely starts with killing it, with the actress who plays Sylvie is doing a great job doing the stunts, or her stunt woman who's behind the whole stunts of all of it is doing a great job. This episode, the action in it is definitely the best so far in the series, and the entire look and feel of this episode was top notch. But after this wonder, it kind of leads up to them seeing the Ark get hit by a chunk of the planet that's about to crash into this moon, and all hope is lost, and the episode just ends there, which is shocking. There was one big revelation, besides them being stuck on this, moon with impending doom, essentially. There was one revelation, which is Loki realizing that all of the TVA agents are variants. They don't know that they're variants, but they are variants because Sylvie went into the mind of C20, the agent at the beginning of last episode, and she was kind of digging through her memories, because that's kind of the way that she can enchant people. She has to take them to a place, depending on how strong their mind is, of a memory in their past, and she had to go all the way back hundreds of years to when she was, a regular person, and that kind of clicked in Loki's mind that all of these TVA agents were not created by the Timekeepers in this grand scheme. So we are really pulling back the curtain to the Wizard of Oz, and we're going to see all these things, see the truth behind the TVA, because that's probably what Sylvie is doing. She probably doesn't, she calls the TVA fascist for one, and so they have some sort of secret behind them that maybe Loki's trying to uncover, maybe Sylvie already knows. Certain things are happening with the TVA that Owen Wilson will probably become aware of, and things will change in that dynamic, which it was kind of sad not seeing Owen Wilson in this episode, but we did find out a lot of information about this Sylvie character. I do really like her as an actress and as a character. I really like this addition to the MCU and this addition to Loki's character. I've always liked Tom Hiddleston as his character, and to see him bounce back and forth with an alternate version of himself essentially is exactly what I needed for a Loki show, which I didn't know I wanted, but it's exactly what I did need. So that is my thoughts and review on this episode of Loki. I probably missed something, and if I did, comment down below in the comment section. Of course, leave a like, and of course subscribe to the channel if you want to keep on watching these 3 a.m. reviews of Loki. I'm going to get this uploaded as soon as possible, and of course I will have reviews out for F9, the Fast Saga, or whatever in the world they title those stupid movies. I'm watching that tomorrow night, so I'll have a review out for that as well. So thanks everyone for watching this video. It was a shorter episode of Loki, but definitely a great one for character stuff. So thanks guys for watching this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one.